shattered crystal. The Amalfi Coast sparkled like scattered diamonds beneath the September sun as Olivia Harrison stood at the ornate mirror, adjusting the vintage pearl comb in her chestnut hair. The ancient Italian villa transformed into a wedding venue seemed to breathe with anticipation. Bougainvillea climbing its weathered walls, lemon trees perfuming the air, and the distant Mediterranean creating a perfect backdrop for what she had planned as the culmination of her meticulous vision. "You look absolutely stunning," whispered Daniela, her maid of honor, carefully straightening the delicate lace train. "James is going to lose his mind when he sees you." Olivia smiled, the flutter in her stomach a mixture of excitement and the pleasant exhaustion that came after 18 months of planning. As a curator at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, she'd approached her wedding with the same precision and passion she devoted to her exhibitions, every detail considered, every element harmonious with the whole. "I still can't believe the Palazzo Mezzanotte had a cancellation," Olivia said, smoothing the silk of her dress. "It feels like the universe conspired to give us perfection." What Olivia didn't mention was how James had insisted on this venue, this specific date, even when it initially seemed impossible. Her fiancé, with his inexplicable ability to make things happen, had called 2 days after their initial disappointment with news of the miraculous opening. Like everything in their 3-year relationship, James Westfield made the impossible possible, obstacles melting away before his charm and connections. The ceremony unfolded like a dream sequence, Olivia walking down the stone pathway strewn with white roses and olive branches, James waiting beneath an arch of native wildflowers, his blue eyes glistening with what she interpreted as love. Their vows, handwritten and heartfelt, echoed across the cliffside terrace as 130 guests witnessed their promises. "You are my perfect complement," James had said, his voice carrying across the hushed gathering. "The curator of my heart's museum." As the evening reception began in the villa's grand hall, crystal chandeliers cast a golden glow across tables adorned with local ceramics and flowers. Olivia felt a sense of completion, the exhibition of her life perfectly installed, every element in its rightful place. James, handsome in his tailored tuxedo, kept her close as they moved between guests, his hand possessive at the small of her back. "Your brother seems uncomfortable," Olivia whispered after noticing Thomas Westfield standing alone by the stone balustrade, nursing what appeared to be his 3rd glass of whiskey. James's expression flickered momentarily before settling back into its practiced charm. "Thomas is always uncomfortable at these things. The solitary artist who'd rather be holed up in his studio than celebrating. Don't worry about him." But Olivia did worry. Unlike her extroverted husband, Thomas moved through the world with a quiet intensity that had always intrigued her. During the 3 years she'd known the Westfield family, Thomas had remained an enigma, polite but distant, his dark eyes observant but rarely revealing his thoughts. His success as an artist seemed almost accidental, his haunting landscapes selling for increasingly impressive sums despite his apparent indifference to the art world's validation. When dinner concluded and the band began playing their first set, James's father stood, tapping his glass for the traditional toasts. His speech was warm and witty, followed by Olivia's tearful father and several friends offering amusing anecdotes about the couple's courtship. "And now," the best man announced, a few words from the groom's brother. "Thomas!" A murmur of surprise rippled through the gathering. Thomas was notoriously private, and even James looked startled by this deviation from the planned program. Olivia watched as Thomas slowly approached the microphone, his tall frame slightly hunched as if carrying an invisible weight. The room quieted, perhaps out of curiosity about what this reticent man might say. Thomas cleared his throat, his gaze meeting Olivia's for one unsettling moment before he looked down at what appeared to be hastily written notes. "When James asked me to be part of his wedding party, I almost refused," he began, his voice softer than his brother's confident tenor. "Not because I don't care for celebrations, but because I care too deeply about truth." The atmosphere in the room shifted subtly, like barometric pressure before a storm. Olivia felt James stiffen beside her. I've watched my brother charm his way through life, achieving everything he desired through his remarkable ability to show people exactly what they wish to see, Thomas continued. It's a gift I've always envied and feared in equal measure. Thomas raised his eyes, meeting Olivia's again with an intensity that made her breath catch. Olivia, you deserve a love that isn't curated or exhibited. You deserve honesty, even when it's messy and imperfect. He paused, visibly struggling. Which is why I can't stay silent about Geneva, or about the engagement ring James returned to her only 4 months ago when you received yours. The crystal glass slipped from Olivia's fingers, shattering against the marble floor in perfect synchronization with her heart. Fallen petals, the world blurred around Olivia as whispers erupted throughout the reception hall. She stared at the shattered crystal by her feet, its fractured pieces reflecting the chandelier light in a constellation of broken stars, much like her thoughts. Scattered and sharp, he's lying, James hissed, gripping her wrist with enough pressure to leave marks. His perfect smile had vanished, replaced by something cold and unfamiliar. Thomas has always been jealous of what I have, but Olivia saw the truth in James's eyes, the panic, the calculation. The room seemed to tilt as memories realigned themselves into a new, terrible pattern. The unexplained business trips, the secretive phone calls, his insistence that they delay the wedding by 6 months last year for career opportunities. Geneva Beaumont? She whispered, the name tasting bitter. The French jewelry designer James had introduced as a colleague at a gallery opening last Christmas. The woman who had complimented Olivia's engagement ring with a strange smile that now made horrifying sense. Thomas stood immobile at the microphone, his face a portrait of both relief and regret. I'm sorry, Olivia. I couldn't let you build a life on lies. What followed was chaos choreographed in slow motion. James's father attempting damage control, ushering Thomas away. Daniela shepherding a numb Olivia to a private room while guests pretended not to stare. James following, his charm fracturing into rage as he alternated between denials and justifications. It wasn't serious with Geneva, he insisted, as Olivia sat motionless on a velvet settee. Her wedding dress pooled around her like fallen petals. It was ending anyway. What we have is real. Was she at our engagement party? Olivia asked, her voice distant, clinical. The voice she used when authenticating questionable artifacts at the museum. The one in New York last December? James's hesitation was answer enough. She wore emerald green, Olivia continued, pieces clicking together. She knew who I was while I had no idea who she truly was to you. She watched me thank everyone for celebrating our love while wearing jewelry you probably designed with her. You're overthinking this, James attempted, kneeling before her, trying to capture her gaze with his practiced sincerity. Thomas is manipulating you because he's always wanted what I have. Ask yourself why he'd wait until our wedding day if not to cause maximum damage. But Olivia had spent her career studying authenticity, distinguishing genuine artifacts from sophisticated forgeries. She could suddenly see the brushstrokes of James's performance, the calculated intensity, the rehearsed vulnerability. Your brother didn't wait, she realized aloud. He tried to tell me before, didn't he? That day at your parents' anniversary, dinner when he started to say something and you practically dragged him from the room. The flash of anger across James's face confirmed her suspicion. Get out, she whispered. Then louder, get out. The following days passed in a fog of humiliation and grief. The Positano Villa, booked for 3 more days as the start of their honeymoon, became Olivia's temporary sanctuary as Daniela handled the logistics of guests' departures and James's removal from the premises. His family, except Thomas, who had disappeared immediately following the reception, made awkward attempts at reconciliation, suggesting that perhaps youthful indiscretions shouldn't negate a promising future. He made a mistake, his mother pleaded over the phone. Every marriage has challenges to overcome. This wasn't a challenge, Eleanor, Olivia replied, watching waves crash against the cliffs below her balcony. It was a preview. Returning to New York proved another ordeal entirely. Their shared apartment in Chelsea needed to be divided, their intertwined lives surgically separated. James alternated between desperate apologies and subtle blame, suggesting that his minor indiscretion wouldn't have happened if Olivia hadn't been so absorbed in her career. "You curate beautiful things, Olivia, but sometimes you forget to actually live with them," he said, during one particularly painful exchange of belongings. October faded into November, and Olivia threw herself into preparing the museum's winter exhibition. Veiled Truths, Deception in Renaissance, Art. An irony not lost on her colleagues who tiptoed around her changed. Status with awkward sympathy. The returned wedding gifts and canceled vendor contracts served as constant reminders of her public humiliation. Worst were the well-meaning friends who suggested that perhaps Thomas had overreacted, that all relationships contained some element of deception, that perfect honesty was an unrealistic standard. "Would you apply that logic to the art in my exhibitions?" she asked her friend Rebecca over coffee. "Would you say a forgery deserves the same place as an authentic masterpiece because they both look beautiful on the surface?" Through the desolate holiday season, Olivia avoided all contact with the Westfield family. James eventually stopped calling, his final text simply reading, "You're making a mistake." What we had was real, even if imperfect. She deleted it without responding, but kept Thomas's single message from the day after the wedding. "I'm sorry for the pain, but not for the truth. When you're ready to talk, I'll be here." January brought snow to Manhattan, and with it, a gradual thawing of Olivia's frozen emotions. She found herself noticing beauty again. The crystalline patterns of frost on her window, the quiet dignity of elderly couples walking arm in arm through Central Park, the perfect simplicity of a well-prepared espresso. In her professional life, she began a research project on art restoration, the meticulous process of removing centuries of discolored varnish and misguided touch-ups to reveal an artwork's original truth. Each evening, she read accounts of masterpieces transformed, of hidden details emerging from beneath layers of well-intentioned concealment. On a bitter February morning, 6 months after what should have been the beginning of her married life, Olivia received an envelope with no return address. Inside was a simple exhibition announcement for a gallery in Soho. Unspoken, new works by Thomas Westfield. The handwritten note on the back simply read, "Some truths can only be told in color and light." She placed the card on her desk, uncertain whether she was ready to confront the man who had simultaneously shattered and saved her future. But as snow continued falling outside her window, transforming the gritty city into something pristine and new, Olivia felt the first genuine stirring of curiosity since her wedding day, the curator in her awakening to the possibility of discovering something authentic amid the wreckage of fabrication. Silent conversations. The Hightower Gallery in Soho hummed with the particular energy of opening night, the murmur of critiques exchanged over champagne flutes, the careful dance of art world figures assessing both the work and each other. Olivia hesitated at the entrance, questioning her decision to attend. She had changed her outfit 7 times, finally settling on a simple black dress that offered the armor of professional detachment. She hadn't spoken to Thomas since the wedding. His single text message had remained unanswered, though she'd read it countless times during sleepless nights. Now, 6 months later, she was about to face not only him, but also his art, which somehow felt even more intimate than confronting the man himself. "Miss Harrison." "Wonderful to see you," greeted Julian Hightower, the gallery owner who had collaborated with the Metropolitan on several exhibitions. "I wasn't certain you'd come, given the circumstances." His delicate pause acknowledged the gossip that had inevitably circulated through their interconnected world. Olivia offered a practiced smile. "I'm always interested in significant new work, Julian. Personal history aside." "Of course," he nodded, though his eyes held curious speculation. "Thomas's new collection is unlike anything he's done before. Less landscape, more emotional terrain." Following Julian's gesture toward the main gallery, Olivia took a steadying breath and stepped through the archway. The space opened before her, white walls adorned with canvases larger and more vibrant than Thomas's typically subdued nature studies. These paintings pulsed with feeling, abstract forms suggesting human experiences rather than physical places. She moved slowly through the room, maintaining a curator's analytical distance until she reached the centerpiece, a massive canvas titled simply Revelation. The painting depicted what appeared to be shattered glass, each fragment reflecting different moments of what might be the same scene, distorted and transformed through multiple perspectives. It's about how a single moment of truth can fracture everything we thought we knew, came a quiet voice beside her. And how that fracturing, painful as it is, reveals reality in its complex entirety. Thomas stood there, thinner than she remembered, his dark eyes uncertain. He wore the same rumpled button-down and paint-stained jeans she recalled from family gatherings, a sharp contrast to his brother's perpetual polish. "Hello? Thomas," she managed, her prepared speech evaporating. "Your work has evolved." "Trauma tends to do that," he replied, his gaze returning to the painting rather than lingering uncomfortably on her. This small mercy, his understanding of her need for space, touched her unexpectedly. They stood in silence before the artwork, a peculiar calm settling between them despite the noisy gallery around them. It struck Olivia that this was perhaps the longest they'd ever been alone together, yet it felt strangely familiar. "I don't regret telling you," Thomas finally said, still looking at the canvas. "But I regret how it happened. The public nature of it. The timing. You deserved better. Did you know all along?" The question that had haunted her for months. Thomas turned to face her fully now. "Not all along. I discovered it by accident last Christmas. Saw them together in Geneva's studio when I was supposed to be in Switzerland. James swore it was ending. Then he proposed to you 3 weeks later." Olivia absorbed this, appreciating his direct answer. No cushioning, no manipulation of the narrative. Just unadorned truth. "I tried to tell you privately," he continued. 3 times. James intercepted each attempt. "The anniversary dinner," Olivia nodded. "What was the second time?" "The fundraiser at the Whitney. I waited by your coat for almost an hour, but James sent me a text saying you'd already left. You hadn't. And the third? The rehearsal dinner? I left you a letter with your overnight bag." His expression darkened. James found it first. The realization that James had systematically prevented Thomas's warnings sparked something between anger and vindication. "So the toast was your last resort?" "Yes." Thomas ran a hand through his already disheveled hair. "I almost didn't do it. Kept telling myself it wasn't my place, that maybe he really had changed, that perhaps ignorance would be kinder." "It wouldn't have been," Olivia said firmly, surprising herself with the conviction in her voice. "Living a lie isn't living at all." Their conversation paused as a collector approached, eager to discuss Thomas's technique. Olivia used the interruption to circulate through the gallery, studying each painting with growing understanding. These weren't just artistic expressions, they were Thomas's attempt to process his own role in the upheaval of her life. One smaller canvas particularly arrested her attention. Witness, depicting a solitary figure watching from shadows as brightness consumed the foreground. The anguish and conflict evident in every brushstroke spoke to the burden of knowing without acting, of seeing truth without revealing it. "That one's not for sale," Thomas said, rejoining her after extricating himself from the collector. "It feels very personal," Olivia observed. "They all are." His gaze was steady now, more confident within the context of his art. "Would you consider getting coffee sometime? There are things I'd like to explain properly. Away from—" He gestured vaguely at the social performance surrounding them. Olivia considered his request, searching for ulterior motives, but finding only earnest discomfort. Thomas had never been at ease in these settings, unlike his brother who thrived on being observed and admired. "Coffee," she agreed cautiously. "Not as Westfields or Harrisons or whatever complicated thing we are to each other now. Just as people who could use an honest conversation." Thomas's smile transformed his serious face, revealing the gentle person she'd glimpsed occasionally at family gatherings but had never truly engaged with. "I'd like that. How about Riverside Park on Sunday? There's a bench overlooking the water where I sometimes sketch." "Where you don't have to make small talk with strangers," she guessed. earning another smile. Exactly. As Olivia left the gallery an hour later, she realized she'd experienced her first genuinely peaceful evening in months. While the other attendees had carefully avoided mentioning James or the wedding, creating an awkward vacuum around the obvious connection between artist and curator, Thomas himself had acknowledged their shared history directly. The honesty was refreshing, like stepping from a stuffy room into clear air. Sunday arrived with gentle spring sunshine, the park beginning to hint at renewal after winter's dormancy. Olivia found Thomas at the promised bench, sketchbook open but untouched, as he watched the Hudson River's steady flow. 2 coffee cups waited on the bench beside him. "I wasn't sure how you take it," he said, offering both. "One black, one with a little cream." "Black is perfect," she said, settling beside him with deliberate space between them. "You remember I worked at that little coffee shop in graduate school?" Thomas nodded. "James mentioned it once, saying he couldn't imagine you doing something so ordinary." "I loved that job," Olivia found herself sharing. The simplicity of it. Making something that brought immediate pleasure without needing justification or critical analysis. Their conversation unfolded slowly, circling from safe topics toward the center of their shared wound. Thomas explained his complicated relationship with his charismatic brother, the childhood adoration that gradually transformed into disillusionment as he witnessed James's pattern of creating beautiful falsehoods. "He's not malicious," Thomas said, watching a pair of ducks navigate the currents below. "That's what makes it complicated. James genuinely believes whatever reality serves him best in the moment. He's convinced himself he loved you both in different ways, that he wasn't really betraying either of you." "That doesn't make it better," Olivia replied, warming her hands around the coffee cup. "No," Thomas agreed. "It makes it worse, because he'll never truly understand what he did wrong." As afternoon light softened around them, their silences grew comfortable, their exchanges more honest. For the first time, Olivia found herself talking about the shame she'd felt, not just for being deceived, but for having presented herself to the world as part of a perfect union that had never truly existed. "I'm a curator," she said quietly. "My entire career is built on recognizing authenticity, yet I displayed a forgery as my central relationship." Thomas turned toward her, his expression serious. "We see what we're prepared to see, Olivia. Even the most skilled experts can be deceived by something crafted specifically to bypass their defenses." Their conversation continued through another coffee, then a walk along the riverside path as shadows lengthened across the park. They parted with no dramatic declarations or promises, just a mutual acknowledgement that their unexpected connection had value worth exploring carefully. As spring blossomed across the city, their Sunday conversations became a ritual, sometimes at the park, sometimes at quiet cafes or museum gardens. They spoke of art and truth, of family expectations and personal disappointments. Gradually, Olivia found herself looking forward to these exchanges with a man who seemed constitutionally incapable of pretense. On a warm day in late April, Thomas unexpectedly asked if she would visit his studio. "I'm starting a new series," he explained, uncharacteristically hesitant. "I'd value your perspective." The invitation represented a crossing point, from public meetings into private space, from casual conversation into deeper involvement. Olivia considered carefully before accepting. Canvas of Truth Thomas's studio occupied the top floor of an old manufacturing building in Red Hook, Brooklyn, a space flooded with northern light through massive industrial windows. Unlike the pristine galleries where his finished work was displayed, this environment revealed the messy reality of creation. Paint-splattered floors, canvases in various stages of completion leaning against walls, reference photographs pinned haphazardly beside color studies and preliminary sketches. "It's not usually this chaotic," Thomas apologized, hastily clearing paintbrushes from the single comfortable chair. "I've been working through some new ideas." "Don't apologize," Olivia said, finding unexpected comfort in the studio's honest disorder. After years in museums where even creativity was curated for public consumption, There was something profoundly authentic about this space where art actually happened. I like seeing the process. She moved carefully through the studio, studying works in progress with professional interest that gradually shifted into personal connection. Thomas's new paintings departed even further from his earlier landscapes, incorporating human elements, fragmented faces, hands reaching through abstract environments, eyes that seemed to hold questions within their painted depths. "These are remarkable," she said, stopping before a nearly completed canvas showing what appeared to be two silhouettes facing each other across a divide of shattered light. "You're working through something significant." Thomas nodded, keeping a respectful distance as she explored. "I'm trying to capture moments of recognition, when we truly see another person beyond our preconceptions. And are seen in return," Olivia added quietly, understanding intuitively what he was attempting to express. Their afternoon in the studio established a new dimension to their evolving relationship. Olivia began visiting weekly, sometimes offering curatorial suggestions about composition or color theory, sometimes simply sitting quietly with a book while Thomas worked. The rhythmic sound of his brushstrokes became a meditation of sorts, a counterpoint to the precise, controlled environment of the museum. June brought unexpected complications when James returned to New York after months abroad. His reappearance at social functions created awkward encounters that Olivia navigated with newly discovered strength. At a museum benefit she couldn't professionally avoid, James approached with his trademark charm slightly dimmed by uncertainty. "You look wonderful, Liv," he said, using the nickname she'd once loved. "I've been thinking about you." "Thank you, James," she replied evenly, neither encouraging nor dismissing him. "I hope you've been well." His eyes searched hers for remnants of their former connection. "I miss you. What we had was real despite my mistakes. We could try again, start fresh with complete honesty this time." A year earlier, his practiced sincerity might have swayed her. Now, having experienced Thomas's unvarnished truthfulness, she recognized the performance in James's appeal, the calculated vulnerability, the precisely calibrated remorse. "I believe you think that's possible," she said carefully, "but we want different things, James. I need authenticity more than perfection." His expression shifted almost imperceptibly. "I hear you've been spending time with Thomas. Is that what this is about?" "No," she answered honestly. "This is about me understanding what I need in my relationships." "He's not who you think he is, Olivia," James said, lowering his voice. "Thomas has always lived in shadows, watching, judging, wanting what others have instead of creating his own happiness. Don't mistake his brooding for depth." The attempt to undermine her trust in Thomas revealed more about James than he intended. Olivia simply smiled. "I appreciate your concern. Please excuse me, I need to check on the Caravaggio display." Later that evening, she recounted the exchange to Thomas as they sat on his studio rooftop, watching sunset transform the Manhattan skyline across the harbor. "He's not entirely wrong," Thomas admitted, surprising her. "I have spent too much of my life observing rather than participating. It was easier to translate the world into art than to engage with its complications." "Yet you risked everything to tell me the truth," Olivia pointed out. "That wasn't the action of someone afraid to participate." Thomas was quiet for a long moment before responding. "I had reasons beyond simple moral obligation, Olivia." Her heart quickened at his tone. "What reasons?" Instead of answering directly, Thomas stood. "There's something I need to show you. I've been debating whether to share it." He led her back to the studio and removed a cloth covering from a canvas in the corner, a painting she hadn't seen during her previous visits. Unlike his current work, this piece was meticulously realistic, a portrait of Olivia at James's parents' holiday party 2 years earlier. She stood by a window laughing at something outside the frame, unaware of being observed. The artist had captured not just her likeness, but something essential about her spirit, a luminous quality that transcended mere physical representation. "You painted this before." "Everything?" she asked, understanding dawning. Thomas nodded, unable to meet her eyes. "Almost 2 years ago, I never intended to show it to anyone." This is why James said you wanted what he had, Olivia realized, studying the painting's exquisite detail, the care evident in every brushstroke. He knew how you felt about me. He suspected, Thomas corrected. I never confirmed it. That would have been complicated. The revelation settled between them, not entirely surprising yet profound in its implications. Olivia studied Thomas's face, seeing anxiety, resignation, and something else she recognized from his paintings, a quiet hope held carefully in check. Is this why you told me about Geneva? She asked softly. Because you wanted me for yourself? No, Thomas answered immediately, his gaze direct now. I told you because you deserved the truth. If you had forgiven James and chosen to stay with him, I would have respected that completely. Your happiness matters more to me than any possibility between us. The simple declaration, utterly devoid of manipulation or expectation, touched something fundamental in Olivia. Here was a man who had revealed painful truth without agenda, who had supported her recovery without presumption, who had created beauty from his feelings without demand for reciprocation. May I keep visiting your studio? She asked, deliberately stepping back from the emotional precipice they approached. I'd like to continue seeing your work develop. Relief and understanding crossed Thomas's face. Of course. No expectations, Olivia. Just two people who value honesty creating whatever comes next. As summer progressed into autumn, their relationship evolved with the same deliberate care Thomas applied to his paintings, each layer allowed to dry completely before the next was applied. They attended gallery openings together, collaborated on a small exhibition of emerging artists at the Metropolitan, shared quiet dinners where conversation flowed without performance or pretense. In October, precisely 1 year after her canceled honeymoon would have ended, Olivia received a prestigious offer to curate a major, international exhibition on authenticity and deception in art. The project would require extended travel to museums across Europe. You should absolutely accept. Thomas encouraged when she shared the news in his studio. It's perfect for you, combining your professional expertise with your personal journey. I'd be gone for nearly 6 months, she said. Watching his reaction carefully, Thomas continued working on his canvas, adding a delicate highlight to a breaking wave. I'll be here when you return, if you want me to be. The simple statement, offering continuity without imposing obligation, crystallized what had been gradually forming in Olivia's heart. She moved across the studio and gently took the brush from his hand, waiting until he turned to face her. I do want that, she said quietly. I want to know you'll be here, and I want to know I have something genuine to return to. Thomas's eyes searched hers, finding the certainty she offered. When they finally kissed, it held none of the dramatic passion that had characterized her relationship with James. No performance, no calculated intensity. Instead, it carried the honest warmth of recognition between two people who had seen each other clearly and chosen to move forward together despite knowing each other's complexities and imperfections. That evening, as they walked along the Brooklyn waterfront beneath autumn stars, Olivia realized that Thomas had given her something far more valuable than the perfect wedding day she'd lost. He had offered her a relationship founded on truth rather than illusion, substance rather than spectacle. Honest reflections. 3 years later, Olivia stood in the garden of a small stone house in the Hudson Valley, watching evening light transform the landscape into precisely the kind of scene Thomas once painted before his art evolved into more complex emotional territory. Wildflowers nodded in the gentle breeze, their untamed beauty a deliberate contrast to the manicured perfection of her canceled Italian wedding. The dinner table beneath ancient oak trees was set for 8, their closest friends gathering to celebrate Thomas's nomination for a major art prize and Olivia's recent appointment as the Metropolitan's youngest director of contemporary acquisitions. Crystal glasses caught the light of simple candles, creating prisms across the white tablecloth. Everything's ready, Thomas said, joining her with 2 glasses of wine. Though I still don't understand why you wanted to host tonight. We could have celebrated at that restaurant in the city, saved you all this preparation. Olivia accepted the wine, her fingers brushing his deliberately. I wanted something real. Something we created ourselves. The phrase had become something of a motto for them, a shared commitment to authenticity over appearances that had shaped their relationship through professional triumphs, family tensions, and the occasional disagreement that inevitably arises between two strong-willed individuals committed to honesty. James had eventually married a fashion editor whose social media presence documented their seemingly perfect life in carefully filtered images. Olivia occasionally glimpsed their curated happiness at industry events, feeling neither regret nor resentment, only a profound gratitude for her narrow escape from a beautiful illusion. I have something for you, Thomas said, reaching into his pocket. I was going to wait until after dinner, but this moment feels right. Instead of the velvet box she half expected, he produced a small, worn sketchbook. Open it, he encouraged. Inside, she found drawings spanning the 3 years of their relationship, Thomas's visual diary of their journey together. There she was, asleep on his studio couch, concentrating on exhibition catalogs, laughing with friends, frowning in thought as she examined paintings. The sketches captured not just her image, but intimate moments of unguarded authenticity. The last page, Thomas directed softly. She turned to find not a drawing, but a simple question written in his distinctive artist's hand. Will you marry me? No perfect day, no grand performance, just honest love for the rest of our lives. Olivia looked up to find Thomas watching her with the same intense focus he brought to his art, seeing her completely, without illusion or expectation. This man who had shattered her perfect wedding day to save her from a beautiful lie now offered an imperfect reality built on absolute truth. Yes, she answered simply. But I have conditions. Thomas raised an eyebrow, waiting. No enormous diamond selected for how it looks to others, she said, smiling. No performance of romance for social media. No pretending we don't sometimes drive each other crazy with your artistic chaos and my curatorial perfectionism. Anything else? He asked, his eyes crinkling with amusement and something deeper. Yes, Olivia said firmly. We get married here in this garden. Small ceremony, just people who actually know us. I'll wear a simple dress I actually like instead of what bridal magazines dictated. You'll wear whatever makes you comfortable. And we write vows that acknowledge relationships take work, rather than promising some fantasy of effortless perfection. Thomas considered her conditions with mock seriousness. These terms are acceptable, Ms. Harrison. Though I should warn you, I will probably get paint on whatever I wear. I'm counting on it, she laughed. It wouldn't be authentic otherwise. Their friends arrived as twilight deepened, bringing warmth and congratulations for the professional achievements they'd gathered to celebrate. The engagement remained their private joy throughout dinner, a shared secret that added sweetness to the evening without needing to become its focal point. Later, after their guests had departed, and they sat alone beneath stars emerging in the night sky, Thomas asked the question she'd been expecting. Any regrets? About how everything happened? Olivia considered carefully, honoring the question with the thoughtfulness it deserved. I regret the pain of that day. I regret that I didn't see the truth myself, but I don't regret where it led us. She reached for his hand, their fingers intertwining with familiar comfort. What about you? Do you ever regret telling me the truth in such a public way? I regret the timing and method, he answered honestly. But never the truth itself. Olivia nodded, appreciating as always his refusal to offer comfortable platitudes. Their path had not been easy, navigating family tensions, rebuilding her confidence, learning to trust again. There had been difficult conversations, occasional retreats into self-protection, moments of doubt about whether something built from broken pieces could truly become whole. Yet through it all, they had maintained the commitment established in those early Sunday conversations, to see each other clearly and speak truth even when silence would have been easier. I've been thinking about your brother's words at our wedding, Olivia said quietly. About how some people spend their lives pretending to love someone while others silently love someone they can't have. Thomas tensed slightly beside her. That day still difficult territory despite the years between. The irony, she continued, squeezing his hand reassuringly, is that neither approach leads to genuine connection. Real love isn't pretense, but it also can't remain unspoken. It requires the courage to be honest and vulnerable, to risk rejection rather than settling for illusion or silence. A lesson that took me too long to learn, Thomas acknowledged. If I hadn't been forced to speak that day, you would have eventually, Olivia said with certainty. That's who you are, Thomas. Even when it's difficult, even when the truth is inconvenient or painful. That's why I trust you completely. As night settled fully around their garden, transforming the familiar landscape into something more mysterious but no less beautiful, Olivia reflected on the journey from that shattered perfect day to this authentic, imperfect moment. The curator in her appreciated the symmetry, how destruction had created space for something genuine to emerge, how removing layers of deception had revealed the masterpiece beneath. When Thomas kissed her beneath the stars, there was no audience to appreciate the composition they created together, no photographs to document the moment for social validation. There was only the truth between them, complex, challenging, and infinitely more valuable than the perfect illusion she had once mistaken for love. In the morning, they would return to their professional worlds of art and authentication, where Olivia's expertise in distinguishing genuine masterpieces from skilled forgeries had only deepened through personal experience. They would continue building their life together with the understanding that real beauty emerges not from flawless performance, but from honest creation, messy, unpredictable, and profoundly genuine. The perfect day she had once planned had shattered like crystal against marble. But from those fragments, Olivia and Thomas had created something far more valuable, a love built not on performance, but on recognition, not on illusion, but on truth.